These officials, they keep on rolling out new officials every day, it seems like, as well as new commentaries and articles on the front pages of the state-run newspapers, including more recently, yesterday, a commentary full page on the People's Daily, essentially talking down the dangers of COVID-19, which is, astonishing, given, as Garfield said, the rhetoric just a month ago was that this was the most pressing danger to people's health, and, really de-emphasizing the economy. Now the shift is going to, we need economic growth. And you're absolutely right. Zhongnan Shan, who's the top medical advisor to the government, essentially is the latest. He says that the fatality rate from Omicron is in line with the seasonal flu at about 0.1%, and also talking it down, saying the infection, Omicron that is, rarely reaches the lungs. And again, there were about 10,000 plus new local COVID cases detected Saturday, which would be a 20% drop from Friday. Good news, obviously. But you know what? It's cast a lot of doubts on the veracity of that data, because all those kiosks that do the mass PCR testings, as they dismantle and no longer require PCR tests, that number, nationwide number of 10,514, may not be the true picture, because they're simply not testing as much anymore. So, again, we have to look at the coming Lunar New Year holiday, that it runs for 7 days in late January as people travel typically. They usually spend more than ever in the year. We'll have to see if the consumer comes back, whether people travel en masse, whether the infections go en masse, because some projections say that we could see more than 2 million deaths in China in this current winter wave.
Steve, we continue to see this incremental scrapping of a lot of the infrastructure that has been in place over the past couple of years, right? We're just getting a line crossing the Bloomberg saying that China's scrapping the mobile app that's been used to track people's travel history as we see these restrictions being dismantled. All of this, of course, is part of that shift to a pro-growth priority. We know that that is the direction. We don't know how it's going to be achieved. Will we have a better idea of the strategy this week?
I think they're trying to remove the barriers to the consumer. And of course, the PCR tests to go into public space and use the public transport and go to shopping malls, that's a good step. Reducing the requirement for the app to get into places to show that you're no longer infected, the color coding system, and of course property. They want people to start buying and borrowing again to buy property as a main pillar of the Chinese economy. So that's why this Central Economic Work Conference, which begins on Thursday, and other financial conferences that will also be held this week, should give us, even though they're closed door, they should give us some clues as to how far the government will go to A, encourage the consumer to come back post-COVID zero, if I can even say that terminology right now, as well as will there be all-out lifelines thrown to the property sector? Will consumers get better, conditions for new mortgages and the like? But Bloomberg Intelligence, I'll just wrap up here, essentially saying the recent unwinding of housing market restrictions and a spate of bank lending, bond issuances, and equity sales might only be short-term at best for the sector unless regulators follow through with concrete steps to ensure completion of private developers' pre-sold properties, sales of distressed developers like Shimao, Sunac, Guangzhou RNF, Agile, KWG, a whole slew of these distressed property makers could continue to dwindle after an average of 73% down year-over-year slump since March. So there's lots of uncertainty. Will there be hesitancy by the consumer, including into property, going forward into the first part of the year? Or is that growth of projected about 5% for 2023 going to be backloaded at the end of the year when we get through this winter wave?